And away we go. Episode 1116 of the Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. It is the day on which veteran players report for 2025 Commanders training camp, for which rookies reported this past Friday. This also is the day on which Commanders general manager Adam Peters and Commanders head coach Dan Quinn speak at a joint press conference. Adam and Dan and Adam together again. The first full team practice of 2025 Commanders training camp is on Wednesday. People, football season is here. For our purposes, football season starts now. Does not start with the start of the regular season. Oh, no. Football season starts now. Now is when we start getting regular training camp press conferences from Dan Quinn. Now is when the news with our team really picks up. Now is when Commanders season truly begins. And no podcast covers the Commanders like this podcast does. It is great to have you with us. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Galdi podcast, on which we talk Commanders on every episode, no matter the time of year. Next segment, an in-depth preview of 2025 Commanders training camp with Commanders insider Ben Standig, including whether a holdout or hold-in is more likely for receiver Terry McLaurin given his stalled contract extension negotiations, and examinations of the major position battles at camp. The offensive line, RB3, WR3, QB3, the defense, kickoff returner, and more. By the way, the Commanders on Monday afternoon officially announced the signing of unrestricted free agent edge defender Von Miller. He did not actually sign the contract until Monday. The team is calling him an outside linebacker, which is what the team called edge defender Dante Fowler Jr. last season, but outside linebacker is another way of saying edge defender. Miller, like Fowler, an edge defender. And also on the show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles as each team on Monday evening began a series against an Ohio team with a game in which the winning team scored exactly 10 runs. The Nats, they on Monday evening beat the Cincinnati Reds 10-8 at Nationals Park at a game in which the Nats scored 4 runs in the bottom of the first and 3 runs in the bottom of the third for a 7-0 fourth inning lead that got trimmed to 7-5 via the Nats allowing 5 runs in the top of the fourth, but the Nats did win. The O's, they on Monday evening lost at the Cleveland Guardians at 10-5 in a game in which the O's blew a 3-0 first inning lead and a 5-3 fourth inning lead. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. I am confining any Redskins name discussion on this installment of the podcast to this feedback portion in the opening segment of the show. Commanders training camp is starting. We have Ben Standig next segment. Football is the focus, but the name thing, again, is the thing off what President Donald Trump did on Sunday. Multiple posts on Truth Social calling for the Commanders to go back to being the Redskins, including a post in which he said, quote, "I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington." End quote. From Scott Taylor on X, writes Scott, "I don't get it, Galdi. Why do people want politicians dictating branding decisions for private businesses? That's a slippery slope that can be reversed once the precedent is set." Thank you for that, Scott. I agree. I don't want politicians dictating branding decisions for private businesses. And while Trump is not what you would call a traditional Republican, he is a Republican, and politicians dictating branding decisions for private businesses is a very anti-Republican, anti-small government notion. Remember, though, that the other side has done this in the opposite way. Democratic politicians in Washington, D.C. for years maintained that the team could not/would not have a new stadium in D.C. if the team remained as the Redskins. So the Democrats have done what Trump is doing, just in the opposite direction. From a good friend of this podcast, Howard Gutman, the former United States ambassador to Belgium. Howard is a longtime friend of and strategic advisor for the top limited partner in the Commanders ownership group, the Josh Harris Group. That top limited partner, Mitchell Rails. Howard also is a longtime friend of Commanders limited partner Mark Ein. Writes the ambassador on X, only solution for Trump and Al Galdi fans who want Washington Redskins back and for NFL sponsors is like Bronx Bombers for the Yankees, Habs for the Canadiens, and Birds for the Eagles. We should officially be the Washington Commanders with the official nickname Skins. Thank you for that, Ambassador. Not a bad idea. A lot of people do still refer to the team as the Skins, but if the team itself officially embraced Skins as a nickname, would that not be an endorsement of the name Redskins? And if you can't go back to Redskins, can you go back to having an official nickname that is short for Redskins? I don't know. The rules in this situation have never been very clear and have been very inconsistent. Email from Gene in Manassas, Virginia writes, Gene, I've been a fan of the Redskins since 1979, but there is no denying the racist origins of the name, long forgotten by most. That it has acquired a second, more positive meaning is also undeniable. Thus, the name is destined to be controversial. An avowed racist, George Preston Marshall changed the name from Braves to Redskins when Redskins was a slur to indicate perhaps scary savages. He was the last to integrate his football team and did so reluctantly. As for polls, I don't rely on polls for historical facts. I doubt a majority of people know that the Spanish-American War came after the Civil War. Now, a politician who exploits racial grievances, who calls African countries S-hole countries, who has dismantled diversity and equality, has weighed in on pushing Redskins. I'm not impressed. I hope the NFL and D.C. ignore him. Thank you for the email, Gene. It may be that the NFL and the Commanders ignore Trump. That may be the approach that the NFL and the Commanders take here. We'll see. Regarding the origins of the name Redskins, not to get into a whole discussion about that, but the best thing that I've ever read on the etymology of the word Redskin was conducted by this guy, Yves Goddard, or Yves Goddard, not sure how to pronounce his first name, Ives. Goddard, a Smithsonian senior linguist. This came out in 2005. The piece titled, quote, I am a Redskin, adoption of a Native American expression, 1769 to 1826, end quote. Included in that piece is the following, quote, the word Redskin reflects a genuine Native American idiom that was used in several languages where it grew out of an earlier established and more widespread use of red and white as racial labels. This terminology was developed by Native Americans to label new categories of the new ethnic and political reality that they confronted with the coming of Europeans, end quote. So according to this research, the word Redskin comes from Native Americans. Email from Michael King, writes Mike, I expect this Trump stuff is just bluster, but go for it, Mr. President. Anything to get the name back. If the team had to stay at FedEx forever, but the Redskins played there, well, I would buy season tickets again. Not going to purchase tickets in any new stadium where the unspeakable names play. Hail to the Redskins. Thank you for that email, Mike. Email from Chubba, writes Chubba, I think there is no chance of the old name coming back, but it would be so fitting for him to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and somehow mess up the stadium moving back to D.C. Wishing you well. Well, thank you for that, Chubba. So whether you love Trump or you hate his guts, we all know how he is. He on Truth Social says a lot of stuff, some of which he sticks to, some of which blows over and gets forgotten. I don't know into which category this Redskins thing will fall, but it is worth pointing out that he can blow up the deal for the Commanders' next stadium to be on the RFK Stadium site in D.C. First of all, we're still waiting on the D.C. Council to vote on the deal, and if the Council had already voted and approved the deal, we might not be in this predicament that we're currently in. But second of all, a good friend of this podcast, WUSA 9 investigative reporter Eric Flack, he on Sunday evening on X wrote, quote, sources, Trump poses real threat to Commanders' RFK Stadium plans if he chooses to kill deal. Has power to cancel federal leases, allowing D.C. to build with regulatory tools in back pocket also. D.C. Council now under huge pressure to vote or risk losing stadium. Team not commenting. End quote. So according to Eric, who understands this stadium situation exceptionally well, Trump absolutely could kill this stadium deal. Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast, check out BGO Blind Pig, the official podcast of BGObsession.com. BGO Blind Pig is great. It is a roundtable discussion of the Commanders. It's like you and a bunch of buddies who are Commanders fans are hanging out and talking about the team. The conversation is smart and fun and respectful. You can find the BGO Blind Pig podcast on YouTube and on any major podcast provider. Make BGObsession.com the home for your burgundy and gold obsession, and make the BGO Blind Pig podcast part of your Commanders podcast rotation.
Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, and maybe even a whole new life. So why not start the journey today? There's over a dozen languages available to learn at your own pace so you can achieve your goals with material tailored to your individual proficiency level, interests, and time availability. I'm finally learning French after taking classes in high school and thrilled to finish what I'd started years ago. And my favorite part about Babbel is that it's dialogue-based. It helps me to actually practice conversations, and the speech recognition ensures I'm saying words correct them all. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language, so I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/bluewire. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/bluewire, spelled BABBEL.com/bluewire. Babbel.com/bluewire. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. 2025 Commanders training camp is getting going. Rookie players reported for camp on Friday. Veteran players report for camp on Tuesday. Commanders general manager Adam Peters and Commanders head coach Dan Quinn are speaking at a joint press conference on Tuesday. And the Commanders' first full team practice of camp is on Wednesday. Heck, the team's 2025 preseason opener is 2 weeks from this Friday. The preseason opener is at the New England Patriots on Friday night, August 8th at 7:30. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Commanders insider Ben Standig, formerly of The Athletic. He soon will have an announcement on his next writing venture. We look forward to that. Ben remains the host of the Last Man Standing podcast. You can follow Ben on X at Ben Standig, and you now can follow Ben on TikTok at Ben.Standig. I'm not sure if he'll be doing any TikTok videos in which he, while dancing to a song, lip syncs the lyrics to that song. We'll see. But hey, Ben, how are you?
God, look, I'm, old man here. Twitter, I got it. Instagram, okay. Facebook. I was one of the first handful of people I remember from my high school class to be on Facebook. But I drew the line of TikTok. I'm or Snapchat. I'm I was on Snapchat for a minute because when Sua Cravens was sort of Sua Cravensing, he was doing it on Snapchat. But I got to draw the line somewhere. But college age people in my life are saying, stop yelling at the clouds, old man. This is where people are. I don't know what I'm going to do over there, but we'll figure it out.
I love it. TikTok will never be the same with Ben Standig. Commanders receiver Terry McLaurin, the stalled contract extension negotiations. It was last Tuesday afternoon, July 15th, that he in a 32-plus minute session with reporters, including you, sounded off on his frustration with the negotiations. He is under contract for this coming season, but given the frustration, are you with McLaurin at training camp expecting an actual holdout? Or are you expecting what has become increasingly popular in recent years, the hold-in, in which the player attends camp so that he doesn't get fined, but is a minimal participant in actual activity at camp?
It's a great question. I think ultimately, if this is the way it's going to go, if by the time people are listening to this, they haven't gotten a deal, if by the time Peters and Quinn talk on Tuesday, there's no deal, if by the time Wednesday rolls around, they're going on the field, there's no deal, I think overall, I would imagine Terry does a hold in. I mean, maybe there's the day one, send a message or whatever. But look, forget the negotiation. You're getting fined, and the teams cannot get rid of the fine. You're stuck with it. Now, of course, if you get fined $500,000, I'm sure they can, in the contract, come up with an incentive that he gets $500,000 for putting on the number 17 jersey or something. But, that aside, I would imagine that. And I think it's also a matter of if the two sides see this deal getting done, it's just a matter of they have not, they're at odds over what the price should be, but they figure they'll get it done. Then holding in makes a lot of sense, right? You're still around the team. You can pop into a team meeting if you want. You're around the guys, all that stuff. That's all important. If he's out, well, then that sounds like it's a lot much more of a bitter scenario than I think, I'm viewing it as right now. I know he said a lot of candid things the other day. I was there for that press conference, but he wasn't a bitter guy. He was very normal, very happy, whatever, before and after. He just was like, hey, this is where I'm at. So I don't take it as it's like, it's impossible to come back from where they are, or that he is really upset. So that's why I would guess the hold in. But we'll have to see. It's going to come down to if there is this debate of like he thinks he should get DK Metcalf money, and they're like, well, I don't know about that. We think it's maybe a number. Mike Evans only get 24. It should be maybe a number, 30 million or maybe a little bit lower. Then that's we'll have to see how that factors in.
You at the Terry McLaurin session with reporters on July 15th asked him about the age issue. He's entering his age 30 season. A contract extension would start with his age 31 season, and most high-level NFL receivers are in their 20s, not 30s. Is the age issue the main issue in these stalled contract extension negotiations?
I don't know if it's the primary reason, but at some point along the way, I think first, as I was like looking at it, I was like, okay, well, what's the holdup here from the team perspective, right? Obviously, hell of a productive player, locker room guy, all that. But okay, you're paying somebody for what's going to happen going forward, and age is a thing. And then, as in sort of checking that theory out, there did seem to be a little bit of some idea that this could be a bit of a factor. And then when I asked him that, he certainly didn't brush it off, and like. I don't know how much if anybody saw that. I don't know if it was on video, that particular exchange or not, but like he was very calm and poised throughout. Like he's very, very articulate. He gets his messages across. But I did feel like a little bit of like he turned that one, felt like he was responding to it in sort of a personal way that like, wait a minute, what? You're questioning my age. I don't miss games. I don't have nearly the tread on my, worn tread on my tires the way a lot of my contemporaries do, because I didn't play full time in college until very late. This is only going to my 7th season. Sure, 30 is a thing. He acknowledged that himself, that it can be something to look at, but you got to look at the individual, not just assume. And I think he took some offense to that idea, and I don't think he was taking offense to me asking. I think he was taking offense to something that I'm imagining is part of the discussion.
Let us talk position battles at 2025 Commanders training camp. The offensive line. Logic would suggest that if everyone's healthy, the Commanders starting offensive line for week 1 of the 2025 regular season will be Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Josh Connerly Jr. at right tackle, Tyler Biotish at center, Samuel Cosmi at right guard, if in fact he's recovered from his torn right ACL, and Brandon Coleman at left guard. And if Cosmi is not recovered from his torn right ACL, then Andrew Wiley or Nick Allegretti is at right guard. Dan Quinn, in an installment of the Green Light with Chris Long podcast in June, did reveal that the team was planning on having Brandon Coleman play left guard. So when it comes to right guard, I suppose the domino that needs to fall is the health of Cosmi, and then we go from there.
Yeah, by the way, you always call him Samuel Cosmi. Is that you got a Samuel in your life or something?
I always see the name written as Samuel Cosmi, so I go with Samuel, but maybe I should go with Sam. Maybe that's the way to go.
Hey, look, I'm trying to say, you got to talk a lot. I'm trying to save you a syllable. No, I agree with you. I mean, it's hard to know. This is a topic that, like, we know that they don't have to tell us, right? Because there's no injury report, and we'll see, and Cosmi will probably be out there at points. I don't mean like on the field, but just we'll see him, around and about doing some stuff with trainers, perhaps. But now is the time we need to get some more formal answers. We can't just be we won't skip any steps. I mean, cool, but like when? And hopefully we get some indication of that along the way. If you look at the time frame, he gets hurt in January. 9 months from that, which is typically, say, the short end of an ACL recovery, it puts you in like late September, early October. But then anything beyond that, it could be, later. So yeah, I agree. It's hard to know for sure. I guess the Coleman Allegretti is the battle there at left guard, but it almost feels like this Cosmi thing is going to give them an out and say, hey, Allegretti's going to play right guard because they're going to view Brandon Coleman as the long-term left guard. They obviously isn't the long-term right guard. And, they may have decided he wasn't a tackle for them, but it's different than saying he's not for them. And I think he's the left guard. of the future. Whether that future is right now, can't say for sure, but I would assume that it is, and therefore Allegretti goes to the right guard. So even the one, there's not many battles here this year, but even if the one that we could sort of say was a battle, I don't even know if that's really going to be one.
So just to be clear, you do not have Andrew Wiley as a starter at either right tackle or right guard.
Well, as a way with a lot of these situations, when you have a young player that you invest a lot in a first round pick, I think it's Josh Connerly's spot to lose. And he might, in the sense that, look, he's only 21. He's making the transition from college to the pros. The whole point of upgrading the offensive line beyond just that's good roster building is because you want to protect Jaden Daniels. And if, the first 3 games of the year, right, you got the Giants, who have a loaded defensive line. Second game, Green Bay, right? You've got Rashawn Gary, and, Green Bay is generally a pretty good team. And then the third game is the Raiders, right? And you got Max Crosby there. Now, not that the right tackle is definitely facing, Brian Burns or Gary or Crosby the whole time, but wouldn't you? Hey, edge rusher, you can go up against Laramie Tunsil, or you can go up against the rookie. I think they're going to go up against the rookie. So you got to make sure Connerly is good to go. And look, they, with Wiley. I mean, here's the other thing, right? At a base level, who's the third tackle on this team? It's got to be Wiley, right? I mean, there is nobody else. And so, not that he can't do multiple spots, but why would you have him at right guard to then possibly have to play him at tackle? Now you got to move stuff again. I think if I had to guess, I'm guessing Wiley stays at tackle. And then the question is Connerly ready? And if he's not, don't panic. That's not a negative. It's just, there's a lot to go on here. It's not just about him. It's about how it all fits together. So that would be my guess that, and also for what it's worth, as we know, left tackle's different. Left guard, if it's Coleman, will be different. The right guard, whoever it's going to be until Cosby's back, will be different. Keeping the right tackle the same doesn't seem like the worst idea, right? So that would be the other thought. But yeah, ultimately, Connerly, it's his job to lose, I would say, but I'm not ruling out Wiley starting week 1.
The Commanders at running back, Brian Robinson Jr., RB1, Austin Eckler, RB2, and then a battle for RB3 involving Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Is that how you view that position?
In general, I think that, it's always hard with running back, the run game in general, to get a true gauge in training camp because there's no real hitting, right? Anywhere they'll put some pads on someday, but it's still not the same as, real action. So maybe we won't see some of these guys until the preseason. And then even then, it's not like we may not see Eckler at all in preseason. Hopefully not. And Brian Robinson, not a ton either. I think the wild card for me is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, or Bill, as he goes by. I think the variance for him is anywhere from he's on the practice squad to he's RB1 at some point. Now, I'm not saying the RB1 part because I saw enough to tell you that that's the guy. I mean, he was the last running back picked in the draft. It would be insane to say he's that guy. But we know he brings an element that I don't have in the backfield. This sort of explosive one-cut ability to get up the field. We know his odd story where he basically didn't play last season, and that probably dropped his draft stock down a bit. If he plays last year and he doesn't have eligibility issues, he's probably getting picked higher. And if we're talking about even like a 5th round pick, maybe that's not insane. So I think it's conceivable that Krosky-Merritt has a larger role, but as it stands today, I can't say it will look anything different than what you laid out. Robinson, Eckler, and then I think the one question for me is going to be: do they keep 3 or 4 running backs? If Krosky-Merritt shows he's worthy of a roster spot at a minimum. And we know that Jeremy McNichols was totally solid last year when called upon. He's Anthony Lynn's guy, the running back coach. So keeping 4 would seem to be a logical move. That's different than they had typically last year. So that would be something to keep an eye on. But that would be my guess. Krosky-Merritt, absolutely one of the guys I want to watch this summer.
Much more with Ben Standig in moments. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, continues to do great work. Just recently, an $8 million jury verdict in Baltimore City Circuit Court in a case in which the Nace Law Group represented the family of a 42-year-old man who died after a simple procedure. Lead attorney Chris Nace is a big Commanders fan, a big supporter of this podcast, and his firm wins trials. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group is tremendous. It is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. Lead attorney Chris Nace is an experienced trial attorney who is not afraid to take cases to trials, and that's because the Nace Law Group wins trials. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. We're previewing 2025 Commanders training camp with Commanders insider Ben Standig. The Commanders at receiver, Terry McLaurin, WR1, Deebo Samuel Sr., WR2. And then what? It was on June 11th that Noah Brown got carted off the field on what was day 2 of the team's 3-day mandatory minicamp. The belief is that he did not suffer serious injury. The team beyond him at receiver has the likes of Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey and Michael Gallup and KJ Osborne and Chris Moore, a veteran who was a standout during the mandatory minicamp. Is there competition for the Commanders' WR3 spot?
I think it's pretty clearly Noah Brown. I guess the only question would be, and we can't say that, guys make jumps, right? Does Luke McCaffrey show up at training camp and you're just like, whoa, Christian who? What? Is he ready to be more? Is Jalen Lane with that 4.34 speed, does he find a way to be like, hey, I'm not just a punt returner. You got to get me in the offense right now. Again, we'll see. But no, based on what Noah Brown did last year here before the kidney injury, it was pretty strong. Again, not suggesting it's Art Monk and Gary Clark, but he was doing a lot of good things. He gives them some good size, and still he would be the biggest receiver that they have. And he was good at making some plays down the field, drawing penalties down the field, and et cetera. So I think it would be Noah Brown's spot. Of course, then the question is when you're in 2 receiver sets, is that more Noah Brown or is it Curtis Samuel? And, we kind of go from there. But yeah, I would say Noah Brown, he's the 3rd receiver, but leaving the potential that, somebody surprises the world here.
I will not ask you about the Commanders at tight end. That, barring the unforeseen, seems set with the same top 3 as we had last season. Zach Ertz, TE1, John Bates, TE2, Ben Sinnott, TE3. Quarterback, Jaden Daniels, QB1, Marcus Mariota, QB2. And then what about QB3? Is Sam Hartman versus Josh Johnson a competition? I know that you have your Josh Johnson theory, which involves him being with the Commanders for showcasing purposes.
Well, let me ask you a question. I assume you saw this, that the Tennessee Titans, that Will Levis announced he's going season-ending surgery, and I don't think they have really much QB depth. I mean, if I told you could swap a 6th for a 7th next year, you trade a 6th for a 7th, and you get a quarterback who we all understand Josh Johnson's a journeyman. He's 100 years old. He was also the Ravens number 2 last year, and it's been said that he's a very smart guy. That's why he's able to constantly come in and switch teams. Seems like the kind of guy you might want to have as a mentor of sorts for your number 1 overall draft pick, Cam Ward. Now, this is just me having fun, but it's that type of thing that I don't know why Washington is definitively has to hold on to Josh Johnson if something else comes up, and that could be Sam Hartman shows out. Washington might be no, we're going to hold Josh Johnson here. Injuries happen. We don't know. We're not going to expose ourselves to all of a sudden having questions in our quarterback depth because of an injury, because we moved this guy. But yeah, I think, I guess I should have said this earlier. My theory was that Josh Johnson might be here. He might have picked Washington ultimately because he's going to get a lot of reps in preseason games because he can't imagine Daniels and Mariota play much. And therefore he gets to show out what he can do, and if that continue to stay top of mind, and if that's the case, we always know there's always teams that need quarterbacks. Injuries will happen, and maybe they can move him for some help there. So if none of that happens and Josh Johnson's here, I guess he's QB3, but I don't quite like. I don't know if I get the point of it. Like I doubt he would even be at least like with Jeff Driscoll last year. There's a world where if Mariota had not worked out, that maybe Jeff Driscoll is the backup. Josh Johnson's not going to be the backup next year, I don't think. So what are we doing? That's why it doesn't quite make sense to keep him, but he's obviously a viable piece.
The Commanders' defense, I feel like the Commanders' defensive line group is one giant competition with the many ways that the group could go in terms of who plays where and who plays for how much. But linebacker seems more or less set, and the secondary seems more or less set. How do you view training camp competition on defense?
You're killing my 53-man projection that I like doing, Al, by stating the truth, which is, again, there's not a ton. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, look, nobody saw Tyler Owens or Colson Yankoff making the team at this point last year, right? Things change. I'm definitely with you at linebacker. I think the question there is, is there enough space to keep Kane Madrano, the 6th-round pick this year, and Dominique Hampton, who was essentially the Kane Madrano of last year, but basically was a redshirt year? Is there enough room for both of them? We'll see how they look. Secondary, there's a couple of like interesting UDFAs. Can one of them make some noise to get on this roster? I don't know. It kind of feels like the top 6 cornerbacks are kind of set with Kevon Seymour as a special teams guy being the 6th. And at safety, Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, that fills out the safety room. So I don't quite. And then, is Tyler Owens, does he develop enough to stay? That may be something to watch in the secondary. As far as the defensive line, I'm with you. Like, you would imagine that Daron Payne and Dorrance Armstrong start, but other than that, it is pretty interesting. Like, I haven't talked about this a ton. I just kind of keep saying Johnny Newton's going to be the starter next to Payne, but they just gave Kinlaw 3 years, $45 million. They also signed Eddie Goldman, who's a run-stopping defensive tackle. Shouldn't Eddie Goldman be being used on early downs? And if that's the case, then what happens to Johnny Newton? Or does Johnny Newton look really good? Because last year he had no offseason because of his foot surgeries. So that to me is a very interesting and, / confusing almost right now as to what's going to happen. And then on the edge, like, I think Dietrich Wise is probably the starter opposite Dorrance Armstrong. He gives you a better two-way threat than they had last year with Dante Fowler. Not as much of a pure pass rusher, but much better as a run defender. And now you have the Von Miller piece of this. I would think Von Miller is probably like the third guy. He hasn't played more than 40% of the snaps for his defense the last couple of years. He's also missed like 3 or 4 games or 5 games each of those years. So I think he's a part-time designated pass rusher type to come in on obvious passing downs, maybe in the fourth quarter, things like that. But then what? Like, is Cleveland Farrell making this team, or are they going to lean more towards a Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who, just because he's a younger guy? Jalen Holmes was effective last year when he came in. So was Sheldon Day. Is there room for either of those guys at this point? I don't know. They just signed. Oh crap! I'm blanking on his name. Who's the guy that just signed up from the Bears? Pass rusher.
Oh,
Martin, Jacob Martin.
Yeah.
Is there even space for him now on the team? He's actually he's older than I thought. I think only Von Miller and Dietrich Wise are older than him, but they brought him in for a reason. So, and then of course there's the factor of how many spots are they getting? Is 10 enough? Defensive line is one spot teams are willing to go more because it's so important. Do you go more? But if so, as I just mentioned, you're probably needing a 4th running back. You're probably keeping a 4th tight end. Are you keeping 6 receivers? Are you keeping 3 quarterbacks? Like, you can't keep everything, right? So I think you're right. Defensive line is more of a battle probably on like sort of the back end, but I think the rotation is definitely an interesting thing to watch.
Final question. The presumption is that Jalen Lane will be the Commanders' #1 punt returner, but what about kickoff returner? Austin Eckler for the 2024 regular season was one of the best kickoff returners in the NFL, 31.3 yards per kickoff return over 19 kickoff returns. But he last regular season suffered 2 concussions. He's going into his age 30 season. Do you still view Eckler as an option at kickoff returner?
You know what? I remember back in training camp last year, and he's part of the group in the returning mix, and I was like, what are we doing here? You're not really going to use Austin Eckler as a returner, right? I mean, again, he's not old by normal comparisons, but by the NFL, he's got a lot of wear and tear. And, it seems like the guy you're bringing in to help you in the offense. Why would you risk him in the return game? And like you said, he did have some good returns, but then he also got hurt doing it. So I don't know. To me, it would have to be a no chance he's back there. But again, I said the same thing last year. I do think that, Luke McCaffrey, I think he averaged like 29 yards a return, I think on 10 returns late in the season. I think that showed to me something, and that's partly why I'm like optimistic about McCaffrey on offense, because of what he was able to show from an athletic perspective there. I don't know that Krosky Merritt is necessarily that guy, but maybe he gets involved. So I just have to imagine they've got other options besides Austin Eckler coming off 2 concussions. That just feels like a bad move. So I would hope not. But again, I was wrong last year on that.
Commanders insider Ben Standig at Ben.Standig on TikTok. Dance on TikTok till you can't dance no more. Thank you, Ben.
I may have to cancel my account now that you've just said that, because it sounds awful, but I appreciate it, Al. Thank you.
All right. Hey, if you are planning a party, perhaps a TikTok party in honor of the great Ben Standig, or if you are planning a family reunion or a wedding or a corporate gathering, and you aren't sure where to start or what to do, no worries, no stress. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business, and it specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your needs and exceeding your expectations. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Well, we now are exactly 100 games into the Nationals' 2025 regular season. It is a regular season that, of course, has been very disappointing. But the Nats on Monday evening scored their most runs in a game since their 11-7 win over the American League-leading Detroit Tigers at Nationals Park on July 3rd. A 10-8 win over the Cincinnati Reds at Nationals Park on Monday evening in Game 1 of a 3-game series. This was a game in which the Nats scored 4 runs in the bottom of the first and 3 runs in the bottom of the third for a 7-0 fourth-inning lead that did get trimmed to 7-5 via the Nats allowing 5 runs in the top of the fourth. A wild game, but a Nats win. They in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 40-60, third worst record in the National League. An outstanding game for the Nats offense. The Nats scored 10 runs, totaled 15 hits, worked 8 walks, and went 7 for 20 with runners in scoring position. The 15 hits were a home run, a triple, 6 doubles, and 7 singles. James Wood, he entered this game with an OPS of just .632 in this month of July, but he on Monday evening as the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter went 2 for 4 with an RBI double, another double, 2 walks, and a stolen base. Great to see that. Wood in the Nats' 4-run first had a first pitch opposite field RBI double to the left center field gap for a 1-0 Nats lead. How about Josh Bell? He is the Nats starting DH and number 3 batter, went 2 for 5 with a solo homer, a double, and a walk. Bell in the Nats' 3-run third had a leadoff full count home run to right field for a 5-0 Nats lead. Josh Bell now for this month of July has an OPS of 968. He overall has not had a good season, but he has gotten his OPS for this regular season up to 695, better than Luis Garcia Jr.'s 692, better than Nathaniel Lowe's 691. Bell is a veteran on a 1-year contract. You hope like heck that he's playing his way into being a viable trade chip for the Nats regarding the 2025 MLB trade deadline, which is coming up. The trade deadline is on July 31st at 6 p.m. Eastern. Multiple young Nats players beyond James Wood did well on Monday evening. Brady House, he is the Nats starting third baseman and number 5 batter, went 3 for 4 with a double, 2 singles, an RBI sac fly, and a stolen base. Dalen Lyle, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 6 batter, went 2 for 4 with a 3-run triple and a single. Lyle in the Nats' 4-run first had a 1-out first pitch, 3-run triple down the right field line for a 4-0 Nats lead. And Jacob Young, he is the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, went 3 for 5 with 2 RBI singles and another single. Here was Nats interim manager Miguel Cairo during his postgame press conference on Monday night on his offense, and then you'll hear multiple follow-up exchanges.
You see what is coming. Like that was good at bat today. We didn't score and just stop. We keep going and we put good at bat together, and that was beautiful to get 10 runs today. But you can tell my boy Wood, he's more short to the ball, and when he's short to the ball, he does some damage. So hopefully he stay like that. But it's a good W.
When you said, you smiled talking about James, what part of his game tonight did you enjoy the most? Was it the walks, the double? What did you like about it?
I'm going to tell you, I really enjoyed it. He was swinging the strike zone, and he was short to the ball. When you stay short to the ball, you're gonna see the ball a little longer. You're gonna recognize the pitch better. You're gonna make a better decision. And today, he make really good decisions.
Josh Bell's another guy who has continued to hit the ball. What would you see from Josh's at best tonight?
I'm gonna tell you, he's a trooper. He's been one of the leaders in that clubhouse, and like you can tell, he talked to all the young players, and getting contribution from him in the plate has been amazing. Every day he comes, he play hard, he hustle, and he been taking chances in the bases, and that's something that you want to translate to the young players. No matter how how you do it, come ready to play the game the right way.
He's talked about being a streaky hitter in the past, but he's been able to sustain the success for a while now. What's allowed him to be successful over kind of such a large?
I'm gonna say they've been working really hard in the cages. Donnell and CJ, they've been doing a really good job. And right now the message is just let's swing in the strike zone, stay short to the ball, and good thing happen. You see Riley Allen, amazing about today. We talked to him, and okay, you don't have to change anything. All you gotta do is just be short. You got enough power that if you make contact, the ball is gonna go somewhere. And he got really good at bat today. Everyone, it was a team effort. They pick each other's up, and offense, bullpen. It was awesome.
All right. Well, this 10-8 win over the Reds on Monday evening happened despite the Nats pitching in this game not being good. The Nats starting pitcher was Jake Irvin. He allowed 5 runs in 3 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were a double and 5 singles. He issued 3 walks and a wild pitch. He recorded just 1 strikeout. He threw 72 pitches, 41 strikes versus 31 balls. So Irvin did toss 3 scoreless innings, but he then, in the top of the 4th, allowed 5 runs on 4 singles and 2 walks, and he then issued another walk. So you look at Jake Irvin now for this regular season, 21 starts, ERA of 4.81, whip of 1.33. His ERA for this regular season over his last 10 starts has gone from 3.42 to 4.81. And the Nats bullpen in this 10-8 win over the Reds on Monday evening ended up not being good. 6 Nats relievers combined to allow 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings. Mason Thompson officially allowed 1 run in 1/3 of an inning. He faced 3 batters but got just 1 out. He got the final out in the top of the 4th, but then issued back-to-back walks to begin what ended up being a 1-run 5th for the Reds. Cole Henry in the top of the 5th faced 5 batters and got 3 outs as he gave up a 2-out opposite field RBI single by Noelvi Marte to right field to cut the Nats' lead to 8-6. Andrew Chafin tossed a perfect top of the 6th. Luis Garcia tossed a perfect top of the 7th. Jose A. Ferrer tossed a scoreless and hitless top of the 8th. But Kyle Finnegan allowed 2 runs in 1 inning. He in the top of the 9th allowed 2 runs on 2 singles, a walk, and a run-scoring wild pitch. Finnegan is really struggling right now. He, over his last 4 appearances, has allowed 10 runs in 2 2/3 innings. Game 2 for the Nats against the Reds at Nationals Park. Tuesday evening at 6:45, Brad Lord will be the Nats starting pitcher.
Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, and maybe even a whole new life. So why not start the journey today? There's over a dozen languages available to learn at your own pace so you can achieve your goals with material tailored to your individual proficiency level, interests, and time availability. I'm finally learning French after taking classes in high school and thrilled to finish what I'd started years ago. And my favorite part about Babbel is that it's dialogue-based. It helps me to actually practice conversations, and the speech recognition ensures I'm saying words correct them all. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language, so I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/bluewire. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/bluewire, spelled BABBEL.com/bluewire. Babbel.com/bluewire. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Well, the Orioles have gone from winning 6 out of 7 games to now losing 5 out of 6 games. A 10-5 loss at the Cleveland Guardians on Monday evening in Game 1 of a 4-game series. So this was a game in which the O's blew a 3-0 first-inning lead and a 5-3 fourth-inning lead. The O's in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 44-55, third-worst record in the American League. And as we draw closer to MLB's 2025 trade deadline on July 31st at 6 p.m. Eastern, it is basically impossible at this point to see the O's as anything other than sellers. Now, I don't think that the O's need to tear the whole thing down, okay? But I do think that the O's should be trading their pending free agents and reloading for the 2026 season, in which hopefully the O's will be good again. But another bad outing for starting pitcher Tomoyuki Sagano. You know, Monday was July 21st. He on Monday evening pitched in a game for the first time since July 10th. The O's gave him ample rest off his recent struggles, but he allowed 4 runs, 3 earned in 3 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 4 singles. He issued 4 walks, a hit by pitch, and a wild pitch. He recorded 4 strikeouts. He threw 90 pitches, just 50 strikes versus 40 balls. The O's this past December 16th announced having agreed with Tomoyuki Sagano on a 1-year contract. The contract reportedly a 1-year, $13 million deal. He is an older pitcher. This is his age 35 season. And Sagano now for this regular season, 19 starts, ERA of 4.54, whip of 1.35. Sagano's ERA for this regular season over his last 7 starts has gone from 3.04 to 4.54. Here was Orioles interim manager Tony Mansolino during his postgame session with reporters on Monday night on Tomoyuki Sagano.
You know, I feel like we've seen him really good at times here. And, the last outing against the Mets, that's probably the one I prefer to think about. And he was so good during that thing. We saw flashes of it, tonight with the velocity on the fastball was good. And just couldn't really command the ball the way we've seen him when he's kind of at his best. And, a good team like the Guardians were able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, Tomoyuki Sagano in his previous start, the Orioles' 7-3 win over the New York Mets at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on July 10th in Game 2 of a doubleheader, 3 runs in 6 innings. He had been pitching so well this season, but he's in a real rut right now. Also for the O's in this 10-5 loss at the Guardians on Monday evening was a bad performance by the bullpen. 3 Orioles relievers combined to allow 6 runs in 4 and a third innings. Corbin Martin allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He faced 6 batters but got just 3 outs as he gave up a 2-out first pitch solo homer by Bo Naylor to right field in the top of the 5th to tie the game at 5. And Martin issued a walk, a hit by pitch, and a balk. Colin Selby, he allowed 1 run in 1 and a third innings. He gave up a leadoff first pitch home run by Kyle Manzardo to right field in the bottom of the 6th for a 6-5 Guardians lead. And Grant Wolfram, he allowed 4 runs in 2 innings. He, in the bottom of the 7th, allowed 4 runs on a double, 2 singles, 2 bases-loaded walks, and an intentional walk. He did then toss a scoreless bottom of the 8th. The Orioles offense in this 10-5 loss at the Guardians on Monday evening, not great, but, 5 runs should be good enough to win. The O's scored the 5 runs on just 6 hits, which were a home run and 5 singles. And the O's worked no walks, so the O's went 2 for 4 with runners in scoring position. Another good game for Ramon Laureano. He is the Orioles starting left fielder and number 5 batter, went 2 for 4 with a 2-run homer and a 2-run single. Did commit a fielding error in the Guardians' 4-run 7th, but Laureano now for this regular season, 251 plate appearances, and OPS of 854. But things right now not going well for the O's in a season in which things overall have not gone well. We, during Tony Mansolino's postgame session with reporters on Monday night, had this exchange.
10 games left before the deadline. What do you just want to see from this team here as, I don't want to say reality sets in, but of where you are in the standings and just how far it might be to get up and about?
Yeah, we just got to compete. You go back to that Tampa series and, you can make the case we probably should have won 2 out of 3 in that series. We weren't able to finish off that second game. You go back to that Miami series, before that, and, that second game is 0-0 in the 7th. Didn't throw up any runs. If we win that game, we win that one coming off the previous series. I think it was in Atlanta. That's where we were at. Or the Mets. And then Atlanta, 2 good series for us. So I feel like we've played well. I feel like we've lost some close games, blew some close games here, unfortunately. But, when I watch the guys out there, I feel like they're competing. And I think if we compete, regardless of who we have, we're going to be just fine.
All right, Game 2 for the O's at the Guardians, Tuesday evening at 6:40. Brandon Young will be the Orioles starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Wednesday show, episode 1117, will include a lot for you on the Commanders, as Tuesday is the day on which veteran players report for 2025 Commanders training camp, and is the day on which Commanders general manager Adam Peters and Commanders head coach Dan Quinn speak at a joint press conference. Also on Wednesday show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats are home to the Cincinnati Reds Tuesday evening at 6:45 in Game 2 of a 3-game series. The O's are at the Cleveland Guardians Tuesday evening at 6:40 in Game 2 of a 4-game series. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Yeah, by the way, you always call him Samuel Cosme. Is that you got a Samuel in your life or something?
I always see the name written as Samuel Cosme, so I go with Samuel, but maybe I should go with Sam. Maybe that's the way to go.
Hey, look, I'm trying to say, you got to talk a lot. I'm trying to save you a syllable.